God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, our main speaker will share his or her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Beverly from Hermosa Beach.
Do I get to choose if I want to be male or female? Hey, hi everybody. And tell me your God shots that happened to you. And the first time I ever asked Christy to go on a panel, I said, "Hey, do you want to go on a panel?" Hello. It's not on. Is it not on? Is it on? Huh. I'll talk louder. Anyway, the first time I asked Christy to go on a panel, she was like, "Sure." And then a few minutes later, she's like, "What's a panel?" And that she's been that willing since the beginning. It's been awesome. She's a good friend, and I welcome if you're new, and welcome if you are feeling new, and very happy birthday to the birthday, the 4, and the 22. Those are very big deals. So I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, so this should be interesting for me. I wrote a lot of stuff down, but that's not always what's going to come out of my mouth. So I love it that when I see Cheryl and Meryl here, because Cheryl was such a huge part of my early sobriety. She actually taught me one of the biggest lessons. She didn't mean to, but when I was new, she had probably 10 years, or 10 to 12 years, and I thought she hated me. And I thought that every time I walked in her room, she snubbed me. And that, and I made myself physically sick over it. I was getting migraines. I was nauseous, and I made the mistake of telling my sponsor. And when we were at a meeting at the club, and she's like, "You need to go talk to Cheryl." And I said, "No." And she said, "Yeah, I'm going to stand right here until you do." And I had to call Cheryl out into the parking lot and say, "I have a feeling I know why you don't like me," and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and da-da-da. And I went on for like 10 minutes, and she looked me dead in the eye, and she goes, "Who are you?" "I don't know you." And that was like, oh, I'm not the most important person, and you are not all thinking about me, which I really thought you were. So I had to learn early on about, first of all, she's the most loving human being I've ever met in Alcoholics Anonymous, and she always picks up the phone, and I've called her many a time, and just hearing her voice calms me down. And she always comes out with love and kindness, and I'm so grateful that you're my friend, Cheryl. Okay, stats, as Miss Christie says. I got sober at 21. I have 40 years of sobriety. I am as excited about my sobriety today as I was my first year of sobriety. I am all in, and I've always been all in. And I was taught that by the people that came before me that, as you can see, are still all in. I got sober at the Hermosa Beach Alano Club. I'll tell you a little bit about my drinking so that you know I qualify to be here. My perception was always off from the beginning. I was adopted, and when they told me I was adopted at 5, I was pissed off, and I was angry that my mother gave me away, and in my mind that meant I was unlovable, and therefore I wasn't about to let anybody else love me, so I kind of shut down at a really early age. I made it my life goal to figure out why, and I also was brought into a family. There was they already had 3 kids. They had 2 way older brothers and a big gap. And then they had my sister. So they adopted me. Otherwise, she would have felt more like an only child. So they were all biological, and I was adopted. And I was, my dad's Italian, and I was very, very dark-skinned when I was younger, very olive skin. And they were all these freckle-faced, light-skinned, very skinny people. And I was like, I was a lot for them. I was just a lot for them in the beginning. And there was a lot of alcohol. There always has been. Alcohol has always reigned in our family as, the thing that it was always a central figure growing up. There was a little voice inside my head that said, if you drink, you're going to have a problem. And I don't know where that voice came from, but I heard it and ignored it. Before I found alcohol, sugar was like, I needed it. There was books, which I would escape into and disappear because all I wanted was out. And then I found boys, and then I found alcohol. And from the moment I drank, I did not have an off switch. It was never to have a drink or to test the waters or to see what it was like. The only thing I ever thought about was I wanted out, and I would, and once I started, I could not predict what would happen next. When I drank, I usually threw up. I left home by 17. I was already drinking in the morning. I wanted to go to college, to my college classes, but I couldn't because I had to drink. And I was a bar drinker, so I was in bars as early as, I never had even got carded. I think I did have a fake ID, but I was very cocky, and I'd walk in there like I owned the place. But I spent a lot of time drinking. I grew up in the South Bay, so, all the regular haunts, the Red Onion, O&Ws, Catch a Disease, Cassidy's, and, just the whole Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, beach scene. And I loved to dance, so I would go you could always go to, there would always be like a live band and dancing back in the day, and it was really cool. But friends were kind of risking their life if they were my friend. I would mouth off to people and get us, I would get in bar fights. I would get down at the pier, mouth off to the wrong person. So a gang of people would want to beat us up. In school, I would spot alcohol from people at the grocery store next to us and get drunk all day long at school and try to sober up before I went home. And I just, like I said, all I wanted was out. And so things that I would do to put myself in danger is I'd hitchhike up and down the beach, and we'd take rides from people that would say they would go give us alcohol. I remember one girl and I went home with some guy. They were in the room making out, and I was left alone, drunk, with a jar of matches. And I was also a pyro. So I was like, I just remember lighting the entire wall of curtains on fire, and sitting there watching them all go up in flames, and him running out of the bedroom screaming, "Oh my God, what have you done? This is my mother's house," and so we left. And recently in the news, there was like that little chase on the Strand, and I was like, I did that. The cops didn't know I was doing it, luckily, but I was drunk, and I thought it was a great idea to go driving on the Strand around 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's the kind of stuff that I would do, up the off-ramp in the wrong direction, driving drunk. Like I said, if I didn't like somebody in a bar, I would throw a drink on them and start a fist fight. And I couldn't control my emotional nature when I was drinking. I couldn't predict what would happen, and what was happening later as the longer I was drinking was that I could drink and drink and drink, and my body would be drunk, but my head wouldn't stop thinking. And that was scary because alcohol was not working. Around that time, where alcohol, I was trying different things. I was tried church, I tried self-help, I tried therapy. And what I know today is that one drunk talking to another is what reaches us, not a book, not somebody that's gone to school and figured out the formula, but somebody saying, I used to do that, and I don't have to do that anymore. And that, for the first time in my life, gave me hope. I didn't know there was other people like me out there until I walked in my first AA meeting, because I was always the one, everybody was like, she's nuts. And this is like, and I felt the same way. I felt like I was crazy and that there was no hope. So, and I couldn't tell you, if people were like, what's wrong with you? I couldn't answer the question because I didn't know. And so God knows how much I like boys. And so to get me sober, he sent a very cute one my way that just happened to be in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was a bank teller at the time. So I was a bank teller during the day, and I worked at Baxter's bar at night. And this sober guy asked me out, right? And I remember I said, yeah, I'll be at this bar, meet me here. And I went to the bar and changed my mind because it wasn't fun there. And I went to some other bar, didn't even think about the guy I said, come on, meet us at the bar. But eventually we came together. I don't know what he was doing dating a drinker, but that's a whole nother story. But for the first time in my life, this person had this thing about him that was so content and peaceful. And my life was chaos, mass chaos at all times. I was always broke. I was, the car was always breaking down. I may not have had money for food, but I certainly had money for alcohol. And it was just, and I was doing cocaine, which was running the money out quicker too, because I needed the cocaine to do more alcohol so I could stay awake long enough to get the amount I needed. And I just was lucky enough that the dealer lived in my apartment complex. So there is this person that's just glowing. And I would come over and he would be on the couch meditating in a green robe with candles. And I'd be like, whoa. It was like being in another universe. And luckily, he didn't say, you're jacked up, you have a problem, I have a fix for this. He just let me spiral out of control and observed. And his whole life was about being of service in Alcoholics Anonymous, going to meetings and helping others. And he brought peace everywhere he went. And that attracted me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I was, getting close to the end, he said, if you don't want to feel the way you're feeling, there's another way to live. And so I was still in very much denial about my own drinking. So I agreed to go to a meeting, but I agreed to go to an Al-Anon meeting. And so I went to Al-Anon and to ACA. And this was 1984, and I remember walking through the doors, and these women and men were so kind to me. They let me cry my eyes out, talk about my horrible childhood and what a victim I was. And there was a lady in there that was a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but also going to Al-Anon and ACA. And for about 4 months, she was my sponsor. And she was listening to me, just, listening. And finally, she's like, okay, what about you? What about your drinking? I want you to do a drunk-a-log and write down every time you drank and what happened. And so I was like, the house on fire, somebody else's husband, the whole list that was going on and on and on and on. And I didn't think much of it while I was writing it. It was very long. But we sat at Coco's, and she sat across from me, and I read it out loud as her mouth was hanging open. And when I finished, she's like, and you have any doubts? And it was the first time in my life that the thing of denial got lifted for a second. And it was like, oh my God, it's me. I'm the alcoholic. And from that moment on, I got it to the core of my being that the abnormal relationship I had with alcohol from the gate. And I owned it, and it went all the way into my soul. It resonated like nothing ever has. And I understood in that moment that everything was stemming from this. And so I walked into the Monday night meeting, the Riviera meeting. It was really big in the day, and it was the first time I ever stood up as an alcoholic, and I said, I'm an alcoholic. And then it got hard. It's like admitting it is one thing. And like Chrissy said, the thought of never drinking again is an entirely other thing, and having to look at my life and think, well, this was November, and how was I going to stay sober during the summer without beer? Like, all of these thoughts were like, what am I going to do? How am I going to? It was inconceivable. A life without alcohol was inconceivable. And so I got in with a group of people that from day one that luckily I'd had a new job. So I then went into escrow. So I was no longer at the bank. I was now at escrow. I was brand new and I was out of my mind. And I think I was on the phone complaining to somebody like, oh my God, my car is breaking down and I just don't want to do it. And I was doing it probably pretty loudly because I was new. And this woman comes out of her cubicle and she leans down and she goes, I don't normally do this, but I just want to let you know that I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous and that if you need anything, I'm right in there. And I literally ran into her office and I started bawling. And I'm like, you mean my sponsor? And she's like, are you willing to go to any length and do without question? And I'm like, 100%, yeah. Just tell me what to do. Because I knew I didn't trust my brain. This thing had gotten me here. A broken brain cannot fix a broken brain. And the thing that I'd been relying on my whole life was jacking me up. And I didn't trust myself. I thought I was scared. I thought cocaine was going to fly up my nose while I walked down the street. I thought my car was going to drive me to the bar. Like, I really was afraid. And we immediately jumped into steps, and I really sat at her, like, I went to this one women's meeting where Franny Smith and Jenny Adama, who's no longer with us, and just these giants to me in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I sat at the floor, and I would just listen to every word they said, trying to, like, by osmosis get it. And, Teresa is still my sponsor today, 40 years long, and she has never steered me wrong because she's always steered me to the book of Alcoholics Anonymous and to the steps as the solution and to a higher power as the only way for us, and she has been as true and steadfast of anybody I've ever known. She has more integrity of anybody I've ever known. And so she would tell me what to do, and I would do it. And there was a lot of writing, and I did a thorough, to the best of my ability at the time, a thorough fourth step, and I laid it all out and read it to her as I sobbed my eyes out, and I was mortified that I had to say all those things out loud, as she smoked a cigarette and looked bored as hell. But to me, it was the darkest secrets, the ones that kept me out there, the things that I walked in feeling dirty and used up, unforgivable and ashamed. And I thought, people like me don't get second chances, and you can't clean that up, but that's exactly what happened. That by doing a thorough inventory and sharing it with another woman, I was able to be free. And at first I was like, I didn't notice anything different. But then a week went by and I hadn't thought about what a piece of shit I was for like 5 days straight. And I was like, this thing is working, some of the best thing that has happened to me has been the amends process. Doing those seemingly unrelated steps has brought me more joy and more peace. And so that mom I told you I was going to track down, I found her. Found her when I was 18. And she was in another state at the time, but it turned out I had a sister because she had more than just me. She'd had a sister first and then gave me up for adoption, another person. So she had 5 kids altogether. But she came from a very tortured alcoholic existence in a very abusive house. And, the best thing she could have done for me was to give me up. It saved my life. And, knowing the rest of the story, I was able to put that and understand and not hold that as a resentment any longer. But when we met, we were both raging alcoholics. And like that bar fighting thing, we did get in a very loud altercation in a bar and didn't speak for a year. And in that year, so I was 20 at the time, in that year, she got sober and so did I. And when we came back together, we were both sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got to walk this path with her for 26 years before she passed away. And talk about having a profound change in your reaction to life. That woman softened up. When I met her, she was like, got a cigarette hanging out and a tumbler of booze, and she was like, I saw where I was going. I was like, ee. So I was scared. I got a front row seat. But she was so loving and so kind and so, like, this program just softened her, and she was so faithful. And then she helped me find my biological dad, who they had just had a one-night stand, consoling each other over the death of a good friend, and that they each had. And so I found the grandparents' phone number, got through to him, and he said, I don't think I'm your father, but we'll write letters, send pictures or whatever. And he got off the phone and talked to his wife. He was a pastor. He had 4 kids, and he was married. And he got off the phone and he talked to her, and they called me back 30 minutes later. And he said, my wife Joan wants to talk to you. And she got on the phone and she said, if you're Vince's daughter, then you're my daughter too. And we want to meet you, and we're about to pack the kids into the car and drive to you right now. And I said, how about I fly to you and make it easy? And he said the minute I got off that plane, he knew I was his daughter. And we had a beautiful, loving relationship. And both, he passed last year and she passed a year prior. So those people were like just gold and loving and caring human beings in my life. And, I've been so lucky. And the mom that raised me, who I was so mad at her, she was the one that took me in. Like, these people took me in, and I'm mad at them. And I'll tell you, if you're doing your amends and your sponsor says you're not ready yet, trust their guidance. Because I went and head first. Like, first of all, there was like one guy I went in and made amends to that I pretty much turned him off to Alcoholics Anonymous permanently. So it's like, you're crazy. This went bad. Get away. And there was several of those that didn't want anything to do with me. Thank you very much. Keep moving. And but there was other ones that were healed and very, very beautiful. But with my parents, I did not listen, and I ran in and did this amends, and I'm like, told them all the things I was sorry for, and da-da-da, and they were in a jacuzzi, and they were drinking at the time, and they're like, are you done? Because you left out a lot of things. And then they just proceeded to just like slam me for the next 30 minutes, and I was like, ooh, I was more mad when I left. And so technically I did my amends, but not spiritually, not the right way, and it didn't affect a change in me. So I had to go deeper, and I'm glad the people around me didn't let me off the hook. They're like, you need to figure out what your part really was and make an authentic amends. And it took a lot of spiritual literature and stuff. But when I got it, what I did to my mom by being an angry little girl that was cold and that never pumped her up and never thanked her and didn't, the things I wanted from her, I wanted her to be proud of me. And I learned in sobriety that I had to tell her how proud I was of her. All the things I wanted, no one ever said I love you in my family. And so I had to learn how to say I love you to my mom, and she'd be like, thanks. And then she'd be like, you too. And then I'd keep doing it, and then she'd say I love you back, and then she'd say I love you first. Like, nobody else in this world has to change for me to have these changes take place. But there's just something about us getting sober that throws that pebble into the water that does change other people, because we change how we treat them. And I did write her a letter and really told her the truth about what I'd done and how I felt and all that. And, when she died, that letter was still in where she kept her most prized possessions, next to her bed. And this program has changed, it's dramatically altered my reaction to life. The spiritual experience in the back of the book says that's what will happen to us. And we won't notice it. Other people will, and we won't, it's of the educational variety for me. It's not a burning bush. It's like, oh, I didn't do A, B, or C. I took the higher road. And, like with my sister, I share a lot about this, that my sister and I had a very contentious relationship. I think she was really mad I showed up. And she just didn't like me, and she was not kind to me. And so we didn't have a close relationship. And we'd get together at family events, and it would be like, oh, God, I have to put on my armor before I walk in, and I'm sick to my stomach because what's she going to say to me that's going to set me off? And, it was just bad. And I spent a year, and I kept praying this one prayer: Dear God, help me see her the way you created her. Help me see her through your eyes. Help me love her like you do. Help throw away all the garbage that got between us. Make it go away so I can see her. And it took a year of saying that prayer over and over and over again. And it was like I got washed over with this compassion that has never gone away for my own sister. And everything changed from that moment on. Something in the energy field shifted. She started giving me compliments and being kind, and we would smile and laugh. And still to this day, that she has a very dramatic, drug-fueled, alcohol-fueled life. And every once in a while I get where she's like, oh, I think I'm going to turn this on her today. But it doesn't go in anymore. It's like I'm neutral. Like I am with alcohol. I'm neutral. It's like I can't fix me and I can't fix my character defects. But if I'm asking God to do it for me, things are going to change. Things are going to move. I have to do the work and leave the results to my higher power. In that, when you're in fear, it's really hard to feel God. It's like, where's God? Have you abandoned me? It's like when you're facing heavy stuff, I can feel very, are you even here? And I really struggle with that, feeling God's presence. And I don't always. And then I just have to do it anyway, act like I do anyway. And for a long time, I didn't recognize that meditation was part of our program. Prayer was, but for some reason, meditation just slipped my mind. It didn't occur to me that it also applied to me, that I should be doing that. And so I consequently didn't understand the word pause when agitated or doubtful, because meditation sort of helps you with the pause. It really does. It lengthens the amount of time before you speak. And I don't know why or how, I just know it does. So if I am vigilant with my meditation, I tend to not be snarky and, make little snide remarks or do something I'm going to regret. I don't always know when I'm not spiritually fit. It'll pop out of nowhere. I will just be like, do. Oh, I went into Walmart, I had to run in for one thing. And so I was just all self-obsessed when I drove in. And there was an older woman walking across the way, and I knew I wasn't going to hit her. So when I went around her, because I was in a hurry rather than being polite and holding back, her whole family was a little pissed. They thought I was going to kill their mother. And so when they walked in, they were ready to hit me. And street Beverly comes right to the surface. I'm like, but what I should have said is, I'm so sorry. I'm so self-obsessed that I wasn't thinking about her. I was only thinking about me. But, I don't know when I'm not spiritually fit. And it'll rear its ugly head. And there's been a lot of times in my sobriety that I have either done something I'm not proud of or said to God flat out, oh, no, I got this. I don't need your help on this one. And gone into something that my higher power just wanted to protect me from, just wanted to protect me. But I was like, no, thank you. and caused myself years and years and years of pain because I wouldn't listen. And so the rule of thumb in my life is I feel like my higher power gives me the intuition, very quietly, very softly, gently talks to me. And when I'm crazy girl, can't hear it. So then he sends friends. Friends are like, I don't think you should do this. And I'd be like, yes, I should. Here's the justification for it. And I'll keep moving forward. And so I have to believe that if 3 people tell me the same thing, that is my higher power desperately trying to protect me. And when you think about it, people you love aren't going to steer you in the wrong direction. They're going to be trying to help save you. And like, I ended up marrying, the first marriage was really horrific. And I did it sober. And I did not know he was abusive. But there was enough red flags that I should have. And I did it anyway. And I got pregnant the wedding night. So the things that ensued from that bad decision were lifelong consequences for my son and myself. And so I'm just saying that, like, if I can warn anybody and tell you to get in touch with your higher power and really take that pause, please do. It'll save you some time. And the closest I've ever been to drinking in all these years has been when I have been in Self-Will Run Riot, when I've had a secret I didn't want you guys to know because I didn't want to look bad here with you, and that is the danger zone for alcoholics because it tells you, you can't look bad in front of them. They think you're this, this, or this. You know what I mean? Like, I sponsor people. If I told them I'm stealing, what are they going to think about me? And it's that kind of stuff that I have to be really careful. If the first thought in my head is don't tell anyone, I better blurt it out. Just say it out loud. And, and I don't think I was I was never a good partner, a good roommate, a good friend, because alcohol was always first. And I have an amazing husband we've been together 22 years, and I met him in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he is the gentlest, kindest, most loving human being I have ever known, ever. And he treats me like a queen. And he tells me every day that I'm beautiful and that he loves me and that he's grateful that I'm in his life. And I tell him every day how grateful I am that I have him in my life. And that just doesn't happen to girls like me that were out there, causing havoc everywhere I went. And we've had so much fun together. We brought a boy into the relationship, and each boy has produced a child, so we're grandparents. We have a 6-month-old new one in the family, and we have a 2-year-old a little girl that I don't get to see very often. And my son is on his own path of, he's, got what we have, and it's been a lot of years of this. He's coming up on 34, and that's why I go to Al-Anon regularly and have an Al-Anon sponsor and work an Al-Anon program, because without it, I think I would have died. Literally sober, because the pain of it all was too much. And now, instead, I have nothing but love and acceptance of somebody else's path not being the one I scripted for them. And that I trust that a loving higher power is working things out on their path, and that it's not about me, and I don't take it personal, and that took a lot to get there. I've been at my same job 31 years, and I have an amazing boss who treats me well, and there's just so many things in my life that because my life is about service, my life is service and in gratitude to Alcoholics Anonymous for sparing my life. It spared me from a life of hell. And it picked me up and took me on this path and put me on a completely different path, one that brings more joy just on the silly things, you know what I mean? Just one of my greatest things I do in life is sponsor women and take them through the steps and watch the lights go on and watch their life just get so much better. And I'm like the biggest cheerleader. When I'm sitting in a meeting with you guys, I am cheering you on inside because I know that, we're losing people left and right. This is fucking deadly disease. And we are losing people. We're losing young, beautiful people. We're losing people, John Kay just, lost his life a couple of weeks ago. And man, I love that guy. And it's so sad. It's so sad because, we have the answer, but we can't give it to you. We can't give it to you. We can do it. We can show you. We can lead you, but we can't do it. We can't give you surrender. That comes from within. And unless you are 100% surrendered, that you understand. Like for me, because I was so young when I got here, I had to really navigate. I had to tell myself, everybody got an allotment of alcohol in their lifetime, and I was just a pig and used mine all up. So that I didn't look at other people looking like, oh, look, they get to drink and I don't. And it's like, no, you're a pig. So I'm forever grateful that Alcoholics Anonymous is the reason I have this life. I protect my sobriety with everything I have. Everything I have. Nothing comes above my sobriety. And because of that, I get to have this amazing life. And if you're on the fence, man, dive in the deep end. It's the water's nice. So I hope you stay. Thanks for allowing me. Thank you.